My father called me a disgrace to our culture when I refused the marriage they arranged. Then my mother threatened to disown me if I didn't meet the perfect son-in-law they picked without telling me. I have been silently lurking on this sub for months but never thought I'd be posting my own story here. Yet here I am in a hotel room, trying to process what just happened at what was supposed to be a simple family celebration. Sorry for the length, but I need to get this all out. Some background. I'm a first-generation American. My parents immigrated here before I was born. I work as a software engineer at a growing tech company in a city about 3 hours from my hometown. My relationship with my parents has always been complicated. They've made countless sacrifices to give me opportunities they never had, something they remind me of constantly. Despite our cultural differences, I thought our relationship was okay, strained sometimes, but generally loving. I've always been clear about wanting to forge my own path, especially when it comes to relationships and marriage. Growing up, I watched how marriages worked in our community, the polite family dinners, the careful public appearances, and then the whispered arguments behind closed doors. I've seen the toll these arrangements take. I've always felt like arranged marriages are glorified business deals. Education, salary, family status, property, it's also transactional. Where's the love, the connection, the romance? I've dreamed of finding someone who makes my heart race, who loves me for who I am, not because I check the right boxes on some family-approved checklist. But more than anything, I've watched my mother for years, the way she defers to my father on every decision, the little sacrifices that pile up day after day, the dreams she set aside, the way she shrinks herself to fit into the role she was assigned. She tells everyone she's happy, but I see the truth in her eyes when she thinks no one is looking. She adjusted to a forced life rather than flourishing in one she built herself. These arranged marriages are never about love and never will be. Most people just live in a rose-tinted world where they pretend otherwise. I refuse to repeat her story. I've built a good life for myself. I graduated top of my class, landed a great job, and have my own apartment with a roommate in the city. I have amazing friends from diverse backgrounds who accept me for who I am. I'm financially independent, except for the health insurance I'm still on through my parents. I'm working on changing that now. My parents, especially my mom, have been dropping hints about settling down for months now. Dad went on this whole lecture last time I visited about how dating these days is a disaster. He saw my cousin's dating apps and went on about how everyone's reduced to check boxes. Good job, nice family, right religion, proper education. He said it's all superficial and cold, and people spend years jumping from relationship to relationship and end up with nothing. Mom keeps warning me that dating apps are making everyone too picky, and people reject perfectly good matches because they're waiting for some fantasy person who doesn't exist. She says by the time they realize their mistake, all the good ones are taken. According to her, they don't want that for me. This family they found has a son with a stable career, good values, and respects tradition. Why gamble with endless dating when they've found someone suitable? I should have seen the red flags. The way Mom kept asking about my work schedule for the upcoming holiday. How she insisted I come home for the full weekend instead of just Sunday like I'd planned. The extra calls from relatives I rarely speak to, asking if I'd be at the celebration. The pointed questions about whether I was seeing anyone special lately. So this weekend I went home for an important cultural holiday. I was actually excited to reconnect with family after focusing on my career for months. I even brought gifts for everyone and wore the traditional outfit my grandmother gave me last year to make her happy. When I arrived, everything seemed normal. Hugs, food preparation, catching up with cousins I hadn't seen in a while. My little sister was especially clingy, which I thought was sweet at the time. Now I realize she probably knew what was coming. About 2 hours into the gathering, I noticed unfamiliar faces. A family I'd never met before was there, dressed in their finest clothes. They kept looking at me weirdly, especially this guy around my age who was in an expensive suit that seemed out of place for our usually casual family gathering. I asked my mom who they were, and she gave this vague answer about friends of the family, before rushing off to check on something in the kitchen. That's when my cousin Dia pulled me aside and dropped the bomb. My parents had been arranging a marriage for me for 6 months without telling me. They'd shared my photos, personal information, even my location with these strangers. And my father was planning to make some special announcement to everyone in just a few minutes. My heart stopped. I couldn't breathe. The room started spinning as I looked around, and suddenly everything made sense. The fancy decorations, my aunt's knowing smiles, my grandmother's special outfit, the special guests who kept staring at me. This wasn't just a holiday gathering. This was an ambush engagement party. I spotted my aunt showing Instagram photos of my cousin Nadia's arranged marriage to some relatives, telling them how successful it was. Her husband just bought her another car. What she conveniently left out was that everyone knows he tracks Nadia's location and calls her hourly to check where she is and who she's with. Then I overheard my mother pointedly telling my younger cousins how cousin Priya was also hesitant at first, but now thanks her parents every day for choosing her husband. Of course, she didn't mention that Priya confided in me last month that she feels completely trapped and isolated. I immediately pulled my parents into the kitchen to confront them before things went any further. My hands were shaking as I closed the kitchen door behind us. Dad immediately started insisting this was for my own good and proper in our culture. I could barely control my voice as I exploded, telling them exactly why I hate these arrangements. It's all about status, education, and finances. I asked if they even cared whether I might actually love this person someday, or if checking the right boxes on their list was all that mattered. I directly confronted my mom about what I've observed my whole life. All her little sacrifices, the way she defers to dad on everything important. I told her she adjusted to this life because she had to, not because she wanted to. She's not flourishing, just surviving. And I deserve better than that. I deserve real love. The hurt flashed across her face, before quickly turning to anger. She claimed I know nothing about marriage, and that love comes later, after marriage. According to her, the foolish Western idea of falling in love first is why so many marriages fail. She launched into this whole speech about my friends endlessly swiping on apps and 5 years later having nothing to show for it. She pointed to my college roommate who's still single at 26. Oh, the horror. And said she's rejecting perfectly good men for some imaginary perfect match that doesn't exist. According to mom, this man they found has everything that matters. Good character, stable job, respectable family. I pushed back hard, saying marriage shouldn't be a business transaction. I'm not some company merger or property exchange. I want to marry someone I actually love, not someone who just looks good on paper. Dad jumped in, saying dating apps destroy real connection and treat people like products. He said he and mom saved me from that misery by finding someone from a good family who will respect me and provide stability. He kept talking about how my generation is making everything so complicated, when marriage is simple, two good families coming together, two compatible people building a life based on shared values and backgrounds. Mom added that when a good match is in front of you, only a fool walks away to keep searching. She claimed my friends will still be dating when they're 40, and they'll regret all the good matches they rejected. She asked if that's what I want for myself. I tried one last approach to reason with them by mentioning my cousin Maya, who genuinely is happy in her arranged marriage, but I pointed out the crucial difference. Maya wanted to meet her husband, wanted to settle down and have kids right away, and her parents asked her before making any arrangements. They didn't ambush her at a family gathering. Mom just dismissed this, saying Maya obeyed her parents and trusted their judgment, and that's why she's happy. According to her, I'll be just like Maya once I learn to obey and accept what they've arranged. The word obey made my skin crawl. By this point, I could see through the kitchen doorway that the groom's family was waiting expectantly in the living room. Everyone was watching our heated discussion in the kitchen. My grandmother was whispering to my aunts while glancing disapprovingly at me. Cousins were pretending not to stare while obviously eavesdropping. The tension was unbearable. When I firmly stated that I would not participate in their plan and would not meet this man as a potential husband, my father completely lost it. Right there, in front of everyone, he called me a disgrace to our culture and said I had become too American and forgotten where I come from. My grandmother joined in, saying I've forgotten my heritage and that girls in our homeland would be grateful for such a match. I've never been so humiliated in my life. Dozens of eyes watching as my father basically disowned me in public. The prospective groom and his family looking uncomfortable but also judgmental. My cousins looking at their phones, pretending not to witness my public shaming. The holiday food forgotten on the table. I fled to my childhood bedroom, hands shaking so badly I could barely close the door. Within minutes, my phone was blowing up with text messages from extended family members, some supporting my parents and calling me selfish, others awkwardly asking what was going on, a few expressing sympathy but suggesting I just meet him once to keep the peace. While I was still trying to process everything, my mother came to my room. Instead of comfort or understanding, she threatened to disown me if I didn't at least meet the man they'd chosen. She said they've already told the entire community about the engagement, and I was making them lose face. She started crying about all the wedding preparations she'd already begun, the relatives who had traveled to meet me, the shame I was bringing on the family. When emotional manipulation didn't work, she switched to threats. They would cut me off financially, tell my extended family I had mental problems, even call my workplace with concerns about my stability. She said my father was so upset he might have health issues and it would be my fault. I couldn't stay there. I couldn't breathe in that house anymore. I waited until everyone was occupied with dinner, packed a bag with essentials, and slipped out the back door. I called an Uber and escaped to a hotel in town. I'm now alone on what should have been a family holiday with dozens of missed calls from my family ranging from angry to pleading. My younger sister texted that chaos erupted after they realized I was gone. Dad was yelling, mom was crying to save face in front of the guests, and the groom's family left amid awkward apologies. Apparently, my grandmother is saying prayers for my lost soul, and my uncle is talking about flying in from Chicago to talk some sense into me. I don't know what to do now. I feel like my entire relationship with my family just imploded. I know I'm right to stand my ground, but the weight of going against my entire culture and family is crushing. I keep thinking about my mother's arranged marriage and how she spent decades convincing herself she's happy. I refuse to do the same. I've got work tomorrow morning, and I'm planning to drive back to my apartment tonight. I'm terrified of what comes next. Will they show up at my place? Will they contact my work? Will they try to force me back home? I've always been the good daughter despite my independence, and I've never defied them this directly before. Update 1. It's been a week since the disaster at my parents' house. First, thank you all for the supportive comments and messages. I honestly didn't expect this post to get so much attention. I've been reading your advice and suggestions, and they've helped me feel less alone. After that night in the hotel, I drove back to my apartment in the city early Monday morning. I called in sick to work because I was emotionally exhausted and needed a day to process everything. I spent most of the day alternating between crying and feeling weirdly empowered for standing up for myself. I decided to be proactive about protecting myself. I blocked several family members on social media who were sending nasty messages and refused daily calls from my mother. I sent one text to my parents saying I needed space and would contact them when I was ready to talk. Then I muted notifications from them. My roommate has been amazing through all of this. She's kept a lookout for any unexpected visitors and offered to screen my calls. My close friends have rallied around me with support, home-cooked meals, and distractions when I needed them. They're all encouraging me to stand firm and not give in to the pressure. I eventually had to go back to work, where I tried to act normal despite feeling like my entire world was crumbling. I've been putting on a brave face during video meetings while having anxiety attacks in between calls. My concentration is shot, but I'm trying my best to keep it together professionally. I established a clear boundary with my parents via email. I won't discuss marriage unless they apologize for what they did. I explained that I'm not against marriage itself, but I am against being manipulated, ambushed, and having my autonomy disrespected. I told them I love them, but can't allow this behavior. This apparently was taken as a declaration of war. 3 days ago, my parents showed up unannounced at my apartment, with the prospective groom in tow. I couldn't believe it. My roommate had left for class, so I was alone when I heard the knock. I made the mistake of opening the door without checking who it was, and there they were. My parents looking stern and this poor guy looking extremely uncomfortable. I was so shocked I couldn't even speak at first. While I was frantically trying to process what was happening, they pushed their way in. My father started going through my mail to help organize, and my mother was literally searching my bedroom for evidence of a Western boyfriend. She was opening drawers and looking under my bed like I was a teenager hiding drugs. I felt completely violated in my own space. The guy, Raj, barely said a word, just stood awkwardly in my living room while this invasion took place. I finally found my voice and demanded they leave immediately. My father started lecturing me about respect, while my mother cried about how I was breaking her heart. The emotional manipulation was off the charts. After I threatened to call building security, they finally left, but not before my mother showed me Instagram photos of my cousin Samira's lavish wedding, saying, "Samira trusted us to choose. Now look at her perfect life with that surgeon." Then my dad compared me to my obedient male cousin who knew his place and accepted his family's choice. Meanwhile, everyone knows he has serious gambling problems and a drinking issue that's tearing his marriage apart, but hey, at least he obeyed his parents, right? The ambush visit was just the beginning. Then I found out my uncle called my boss claiming there was a family emergency to get my contact information and work schedule. Fortunately, my company has good privacy policies and didn't share anything, but it was mortifying to have my boss ask me if everything was okay. My extended family has been flooding my social media with comments about family duty and respecting my elders. Posts from years ago are suddenly getting comments like, "This is how an ungrateful daughter behaves, and remember where you came from." My grandmother is now claiming she's having health issues due to my selfish behavior, and relatives are texting me that it will be my fault if anything happens to her. The worst part? I discovered my parents gave my phone number to this prospective groom, and he's been texting me constantly. At first it was awkward apologies for the situation, but now it's evolved into weird attempts at getting to know me despite my clear lack of interest. He sent a message yesterday saying he respects my independence, but thinks we could come to an understanding if I would just be reasonable and meet him properly. And if all that wasn't enough, I learned from family gossip that my parents have told the entire community I'm engaged, even though I've explicitly refused. Several distant relatives have sent congratulatory messages asking about wedding dates. My father even contacted my landlord about breaking my lease because his daughter will be moving back home soon for her wedding. Thankfully, the landlord checked with me first. Now they're threatening to withdraw financial support for my younger sister's education if I don't cooperate. My sister is in her first year of college, and this would devastate her future. My mother revealed in a voicemail that she's already purchased wedding items and put deposits on venues. The groom's family is demanding an apology from me for the humiliation at the gathering. I feel like I'm in a nightmare that won't end. Every day brings some new boundary violation or manipulation tactic. I'm trying to stay strong, but the constant pressure is wearing me down. My appetite is gone, I'm having trouble sleeping, and I jump every time my phone buzzes. But I won't give in. I can't. This isn't just about one marriage arrangement anymore. It's about whether I get to have agency over my own life. Update 2. After a week of nonstop harassment, I reached my breaking point yesterday. I was in the middle of an important meeting at work when my phone started blowing up. I received 13 text messages in 1 hour from various family members, all variations on the "you're destroying your parents" and "think of your family's honor" theme. I had to excuse myself from the meeting and ended up having a full-blown panic attack in the bathroom. My colleague found me there, hyperventilating and crying, and helped me calm down. I was so embarrassed, but she was incredibly kind and shared that her family had also tried to pressure her into an unwanted relationship, though not to this extreme. When I got home that evening, completely drained, I discovered something that chilled me to the bone. My parents had accessed my bank accounts. They were joint accounts from college that I never got around to changing, and they'd been monitoring all my purchases and movements. There was even a small test withdrawal. The invasion of privacy was overwhelming. That was the last straw. A friend has offered me an emergency place to stay when my parents threatened to come back to my apartment. I've made the difficult decision to completely cut contact temporarily while I get my life in order. Here's what I've done so far. 1. Opened new bank accounts and transferred all my funds. 2. Changed my phone number and email addresses. 3. Taken emergency leave from work. 4. Sent a firm email to my parents outlining all their boundary violations. 5. Explicitly stated, again, that I will never agree to this arranged marriage. 6. Posted a public statement to family-connected social media explaining my position. And 7th, consulted a lawyer about a potential restraining order. The lawyer advised documenting everything and said I could potentially get a restraining order if the harassment continues, especially since they've shown up uninvited at my home and workplace. I've started keeping a detailed log of every contact attempt and boundary violation. I thought these measures would give me some breathing room, but instead, all hell broke loose. My father called my company's HR department claiming I'm mentally unstable and need family intervention. He told them I was having a cultural crisis and might be a danger to myself. HR called me in for a meeting, and I had to explain the entire humiliating situation to my manager and the HR director. Thankfully, they were understanding and supportive, but the professional embarrassment was intense. My mother contacted all my friends saying I'm in danger and making wild accusations about me being brainwashed by Western influences and potentially being controlled by a secret boyfriend. She even found my college roommate's parents' phone number somehow and called them crying about how worried she is about me. My uncle threatened to bring me back to the family home by force, saying in a voicemail that sometimes young women need guidance even when they think they don't. The thinly veiled threat sent shivers down my spine. I discovered my parents contacted prospective employers through LinkedIn to warn them about me. I only found out because a recruiter I'd interviewed with last month reached out to check if I was okay, saying she'd received a strange call from someone claiming to be my mother who was concerned about my mental health. Relatives are posting publicly about my mental health crisis and sharing old family photos with captions like, "She was such a good girl before she forgot her culture," and praying she remembers her family values soon. It's like they're creating this narrative that I've had some kind of breakdown, rather than just refusing an arranged marriage. My younger sister is caught in the middle of all this, begging me to just pretend to agree to make it all stop. She says our parents are making her life miserable, constantly questioning her about my whereabouts and friends. She's afraid they'll start arranging a marriage for her next if I don't fix this situation. Several cultural community leaders have reached out offering to mediate the family dispute, but their idea of mediation seems to be convincing me to give in. One elder actually told me, "Sometimes we must sacrifice our small desires for the greater harmony of the family." My desire for autonomy and genuine love is apparently small compared to family honor. Family group chat has been blowing up with photos of my cousin Ria's new luxury apartment with captions like, "She let her parents choose, now look at her blessed life." They conveniently leave out how miserable Ria is, completely controlled by her overbearing in-laws who dictate everything from what she wears to when she can visit her own parents. My mother sent an article about my cousin Zara's picture-perfect wedding with the caption, "This could have been you." Meanwhile, Zara confided in me months ago that she was pressured into the marriage and now feels completely isolated from her friends and support system. My aunt pointedly mentioned how cousin Samira respected her parents' wishes and now has everything a woman could want. Nobody mentions that Samira is hiding her depression and anxiety medication from her husband and in-laws because mental health issues are seen as shameful in our community. I've never felt so anxious in my life. I'm having trouble sleeping and constantly looking over my shoulder. I've started checking behind me when walking home and have asked neighbors to keep an eye out for my parents. I feel like I'm living in a strange psychological thriller where the villains are the people who are supposed to love me most. But despite all this, I'm also discovering an inner strength I didn't know I had. Every time I want to give in just to make the harassment stop, I think about the lifetime of unhappiness that would follow. I think about my mother's resigned acceptance of her limited life, and I refuse to follow that path. Update 3. Things have escalated even further in the past 2 weeks. My parents showed up at my friend's apartment where I'm staying. I don't even know how they found the address, possibly through mutual acquaintances or by following me from work. We didn't answer the door, but they stayed outside for hours, alternating between angry knocking and tearful pleas. My friend was so freaked out that she's considering breaking her lease to move somewhere else. They left a letter under the door threatening legal action if I don't return home immediately. The letter was full of emotional manipulation, how I'm killing my mother with stress, how my father can't sleep, how relatives are asking questions they can't answer. They framed my independence as a personal attack on them, as if my desire to choose my own partner is somehow a rejection of their parenting. Today I received a letter from a family lawyer claiming I've taken family property that needs to be returned. It's completely fabricated. They're just trying to force contact. The property they're referring to is a gold necklace my grandmother gave me for my 18th birthday. It was explicitly a gift to me, not a family heirloom to be returned. The cultural community has started shunning friends who supported me. My best friend's mother was uninvited from a community celebration because she harbors a disobedient daughter. My roommate, who isn't even from our culture, was approached by community members at her workplace and questioned about my whereabouts. My younger sister reports that our parents are discussing sending me back to the homeland to reconnect with values. She overheard them talking about how a few months with our conservative extended family overseas would fix my attitude problem. The idea that they might try to trick me into traveling and then trap me there is terrifying. My mother is spreading rumors about me having a secret relationship with a forbidden boyfriend, who is corrupting me against my culture. There is no boyfriend, forbidden or otherwise. But the rumor serves their narrative that my rejection of their arrangement must be because I'm already involved with someone they wouldn't approve of, not simply because I want autonomy. There was one brief attempt at a family meeting that my sister arranged, hoping to find middle ground. It quickly devolved into accusations. My parents refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing and insist I'm the problem. They presented the situation as if they were making a reasonable request, and I was being irrationally defiant. When I brought up their boundary violations, showing up uninvited, accessing my bank accounts, contacting my workplace, They dismissed it as concerned parents doing what's necessary. During our last phone call, I finally confronted my mother directly about the reality of her own marriage. I told her I know she thinks she's happy, but I've watched her my whole life making so many sacrifices and giving up so much of herself. I said that's not love, it's just adjustment to a forced life, and I don't want to end up like that. I don't want to spend my life pretending everything's fine when it's not. There was this stunned silence before she quietly denied understanding anything about marriage or sacrifice. Then my father got on the phone to lecture me about respect and tradition. Same pattern, every time. This whole situation has put me under serious financial strain. The legal consultations aren't cheap, and I've had emergency moving expenses. I'm in the process of getting my own health insurance, which is another unexpected cost. I'm fortunate to have a good job, but these sudden expenses are stretching my budget thin. I'm feeling the cultural isolation acutely. The community I grew up with has essentially excommunicated me. These are people who've known me since I was a baby, who celebrated my academic achievements and career success. Now they look at me like I'm some kind of traitor to my heritage, all because I want to choose who I marry. I worry constantly about my younger sister still living at home. She's walking on eggshells, afraid to defend me too strongly, but also afraid to side with our parents completely. I fear they'll restrict her freedom even more because of my actions. Or worse, start planning an arranged marriage for her sooner than they would have. I've realized that reconciliation might never happen on my terms. My parents continue to insist that I pretend nothing happened to restore family harmony. They want me to meet this man, apologize to his family for the misunderstanding, and proceed with their plans as if my feelings don't matter. I refuse to invalidate my own feelings just to keep peace. The one bright spot in all this darkness came from my Aunt Priya, who reached out privately to validate my feelings. She's the only family member who hasn't tried to pressure me. She shared that she had similar doubts before her own arranged marriage, but never found the courage to speak up. She told me she admires my strength and that while the path I'm choosing is harder in the short term, it may lead to greater happiness in the long run. I've also found a support group for others from similar backgrounds facing the same pressures. It's been incredibly healing to connect with people who truly understand the cultural complexity of my situation. They don't judge me for wanting both my independence and my family's acceptance, even though those things seem mutually exclusive right now. I've started therapy to process all this family trauma. My therapist is helping me understand that I can love my family while still setting firm boundaries. She's teaching me that the guilt I feel isn't a sign that I'm wrong. It's just the result of a lifetime of cultural conditioning that prioritizes family harmony over individual happiness. Maya texts me sometimes. She's actually happy. Her kids are adorable. Her husband treats her well, but she chose that life. She was ready to settle down, wanted children, and her parents asked her before making arrangements. They didn't ambush her. They respected her enough to give her a choice. That's the difference my parents can't seem to understand. I still believe in love. I still want that connection that goes beyond checkboxes and family approval. Maybe the dating world is messy and frustrating, but at least it gives me the chance to find someone who sees me for who I am, not just what I represent on paper. I want a partnership built on genuine connection, not a transaction that benefits our families. My parents still call occasionally, but conversations are strained and brief. They act like nothing happened and expect me to do the same. I won't. This isn't the perfect ending I wanted, but it's real. I'm learning to live with the pain of knowing my relationship with them might never be what it once was, but I'd rather have this truth than live their lie. I'll update if anything changes, but honestly, I'm not holding my breath. Sometimes family has to be the people who actually respect your choices.